Have you ever looked into someone's eyes? Someone who always smiles, always says, "Don't worry, I'm fine," and felt that something wasn't right? There's a heaviness behind that smile, a quiet exhaustion behind their calm voice. They seem so composed, so kind, so endlessly patient, but if you could see beneath their surface, you'd find something most people never notice, a storm silently raging beneath their gentle exterior. Let me tell you a secret. Even the kindest souls carry a shadow. You see, not all light is born from purity. Some light is forged in fire, born from pain, rejection, and years of carrying other people's weight. And the people who seem to love the hardest are often the ones who have known what it's like to be unloved. They learned compassion, not from comfort, but from suffering. They learned understanding not from being understood, but from being ignored. They learned to listen because no one ever truly listened to them. Every act of kindness they offer, every comforting word, every patient smile, every small act of care is often a silent echo of something they never received. Their goodness is not just a choice. It's a survival strategy. Somewhere in their past, they decided that if they could make others happy, maybe they wouldn't have to feel their own pain. If they could bring light to others, maybe their own darkness would fade. But pain doesn't disappear just because you hide it. It burrows deeper. These are the people who say yes when they're exhausted, who forgive before being asked, who keep showing up even when they're falling apart, and the world applauds them. We call them beautiful souls, selfless hearts, good people. But what we often fail to realize is that this very goodness sometimes comes at the cost of their own emotional survival. They become addicted to being needed, terrified of disappointing, and incapable of saying no, because deep down they fear that if they stop being good, they'll stop being loved. That's the hidden mask of kindness. They wear it every day, smiling when their heart is breaking, helping others while quietly drowning inside. They've mastered the art of appearing okay, even when their spirit is collapsing. They're not liars. They're protectors, not of others but of themselves. They protect their image of the good one, because that's the only identity that's ever earned them acceptance. But here's the tragedy. When people constantly see your kindness, they start to forget your pain. When you always show strength, they stop believing you could ever be weak. And that's how the kindest people become the loneliest. They attract those who take, but rarely those who give. They comfort others, but rarely receive comfort themselves. They're surrounded by people, yet feel invisible. Because everyone sees their light, but no one notices the shadow that created it. And over time, that shadow grows heavier. Because every "I'm fine" unspoken truth piles up. Every time they put someone else first, a small piece of them goes unheard. Every time they suppress their anger, their sadness, their longing, their inner world tightens like a coiled spring. Eventually, something starts to shift. The light they once gave so freely begins to dim. Their patience runs thin. Their heart, once overflowing, begins to ache with quiet resentment. They start wondering, who takes care of the caretaker? Who heals the healer? Who listens to the one who's always listening? But they rarely ask these questions aloud, because asking feels selfish, so they stay silent. They keep smiling. They keep being the good one, until one day something breaks, not dramatically, not loudly, but quietly, a small crack in the mask. A whisper from the soul saying, "I can't keep pretending." And that's when they begin to face a truth they've avoided all their life, that even the kindest hearts have limits. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't heal others by constantly wounding yourself. And you can't keep giving light while refusing to step into your own darkness. Because here's the paradox. Ignoring your darkness doesn't make you more good. It makes you fragile. It turns your kindness into a shield, your empathy into exhaustion, your love into a duty rather than a choice. True goodness isn't about denial, it's about balance. It's about acknowledging your anger, your pain, your unmet needs, and not letting them define you, but also not pretending they don't exist. Every emotion has a purpose. Anger protects your boundaries. Sadness reminds you that something matters. Fear keeps you cautious. Even darkness teaches you depth. But when good people suppress all that, when they hide their truth for the sake of being liked, their kindness turns into a prison. And ironically, the more they try to hide their darkness, the stronger it becomes. It starts showing up in subtle ways: fatigue, anxiety, self-doubt, passive resentment, their soul begins to cry out, "See me, hear me. Let me be real." That's the whisper of the shadow, not evil, not destructive, but longing to be understood. So if you're one of those people, the ones who always smile through pain, who feel too much, who give too much, remember this: your kindness is beautiful, but it doesn't have to come at the cost of your truth. You are allowed to be good and angry. You are allowed to be compassionate and tired. You are allowed to care for others and still choose yourself. Because real kindness isn't about self-sacrifice. It's about self-awareness. It's about knowing your darkness, embracing it, and still choosing to do good, not because you must, but because you can. And when you reach that point, and when your light no longer hides your shadow, but shines through it, that's when your kindness stops being a mask and becomes your true power. There's a silent tragedy that happens to many good people, a point where kindness stops being freedom and slowly turns into a cage. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins with small choices, innocent intentions. You want to be kind. You want to make peace. You want to do the right thing, so you say yes when you want to say no. You smile when you're breaking inside. You forgive someone not because they deserve it, but because you can't stand conflict. At first it feels noble. You tell yourself you're being mature, understanding, compassionate. But slowly something strange begins to happen. The more you silence your truth, the louder the lies become. And the more you try to please everyone, the more invisible you start to feel. That's the moment when goodness stops being strength and starts becoming self-erasure. Good people often carry this illusion that saying no makes them unkind, that expressing anger makes them selfish, that protecting their peace means they're cold or uncaring. But that's a lie society teaches to keep people obedient, quiet and controllable. From childhood, many of us were told, be nice, don't argue, always share, forgive quickly. Good people don't get angry. So we grew up believing that love must always come with sacrifice. That peace must always mean silence. That being good means never disappointing anyone, even if it kills something inside us. But here's the truth no one told us. When you constantly suppress your real emotions to appear good, you begin to lose your authenticity. You start to live not as who you are, but as who the world expects you to be. And that's not kindness, that's imprisonment. Think about it. How many times have you said yes just to avoid guilt? How many times have you smiled through something that broke you? How many times have you apologized for things that weren't your fault, just to keep the peace? Each time you do that, you trade a small piece of your soul for approval. Each time you reinforce the belief that your worth depends on your usefulness to others. And that's how the good person becomes trapped. Not by others, but by their own need to be seen as good. Soon it becomes a role you can't escape. You start anticipating what others want before they even ask. You overextend yourself, burn out quietly, and then blame yourself for feeling tired. And when you finally reach your breaking point, when you finally express anger, or pull away or say enough, people get shocked. They say, you've changed. No, you haven't changed. You've simply stopped pretending. But by then, it's too late, because you've spent so long hiding behind your own kindness that even you've forgotten who you really are. The truth is, many good people are not peaceful. They're exhausted. Not calm, but numb. Not loving, but afraid of being alone. They confuse people-pleasing with love and tolerance with virtue. But love that costs you your peace is not love, it's dependency. And forgiveness that keeps you chained to pain is not healing, it's avoidance. So what happens when goodness becomes a cage? Your emotions start to rot. All that suppressed anger turns into resentment. All that fake harmony turns into emptiness. You start to feel invisible, used and quietly angry. But you can't say it, because anger doesn't fit your good person image. So you suppress it again. You keep smiling, but your soul whispers, this isn't peace. This is paralysis. And that whisper grows louder until one day you wake up and realize you've built your own prison. Not out of walls and chains, but out of guilt and fear. You've become addicted to approval. The nods, the thanks, the admiration. You've made other people's happiness your responsibility. And in doing so, you've abandoned your own. But here's the truth. You don't owe anyone your constant availability. You don't owe anyone your silence just to keep them comfortable. And you don't owe anyone your forgiveness if it comes at the expense of your self-respect. Goodness without boundaries is self-destruction. The strongest souls aren't the ones who never get angry. They're the ones who can feel their anger, understand it, and still choose wisdom over reaction. They're not the ones who never say no. They're the ones who can say no with grace and still sleep peacefully at night. They're not the ones who never disappoint. They're the ones who've learned that disappointing others is sometimes the price of staying true to yourself. Real goodness isn't weakness. It's not about surrendering yourself to everyone's demands. It's about standing tall in your truth, even if your voice trembles. It's about knowing that you can be both kind and firm, loving and strong, gentle and unyielding. Because being good doesn't mean being a doormat. It means being conscious. It means understanding when your giving turns into losing. It means realizing that your value doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being authentic. The moment you understand that, everything changes. You stop saying yes out of fear and start saying yes out of choice. You stop giving to be loved and start giving because you are love. You stop living for others' approval and start living for your own peace. That's when goodness stops being a cage and becomes freedom. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. You don't become less kind by protecting your heart. You become more real, because only when you dare to break free from the cage of being too good do you finally discover the purest form of goodness, the kind that doesn't destroy you in the process of saving everyone else. Would you like me to move on and expand? Section 3. The repressed shadow, next in the same tone and length, about 800 words. That's the part where the speech begins to turn more psychological and philosophical, integrating the Jungian idea of embracing one's darkness. Because what Jung was really saying is that every human being carries a hidden side, a side we refuse to see, to feel, or to admit exists. He called it the shadow. The shadow isn't evil. It's not a monster hiding in the dark. It's the collection of everything we've repressed: our anger, jealousy, lust, pride, fear, even our desire for power or control. It's every thought you've buried because someone told you it was wrong, every emotion you've denied because you were afraid of what people would think. And here's the paradox. The more you deny your shadow, the more control it gains over you. Think about it. How often have you seen a person who seems endlessly calm suddenly explode over something small? Or someone who preaches love and forgiveness secretly carry deep bitterness inside them? That's the shadow breaking through the cracks. What we suppress doesn't disappear. It waits. It hides beneath our kindness, under our politeness, inside our so-called goodness. And when the pressure becomes too much, the mask falls off, and we're forced to meet the part of ourselves we've spent a lifetime avoiding. The truth is, every good person has a dark twin living quietly inside them. The one who wants to scream when they stay silent. The one who wants to walk away when they choose to stay. The one who wants to say, "I'm tired of being nice." But we silence that voice because it threatens the image we've built, the image of the gentle, kind, peaceful person everyone expects us to be. We fear that if people saw our anger, our frustration, our selfishness, they'd stop loving us. So we bury it. We pretend it doesn't exist. But what's buried alive always finds a way to rise. And that's why so many good people eventually reach a point of quiet despair. They've spent so long denying their darkness that they've lost touch with their authenticity. They confuse peace with suppression, control with virtue, and numbness with strength. But here's the deeper truth. You cannot be truly good until you've met your own darkness. Real peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from understanding your capacity for chaos. Real strength doesn't come from pretending you're pure. It comes from facing your impurities without shame. And real love doesn't come from denying your flaws. It comes from embracing them and still choosing to grow. When you finally look into your shadow, something powerful happens. You stop seeing it as an enemy and start seeing it as a teacher. Your anger teaches you where your boundaries are. Your envy reveals what you secretly desire. Your fear exposes where you need courage. Your sadness reminds you what matters most. Every dark emotion carries wisdom, but only if you have the courage to face it. Imagine your soul as a vast ocean. The light at the surface is your conscious self, what the world sees. But deep beneath there are currents you cannot see, forces that shape your every thought, every decision, every reaction. Those depths are your shadow. You can ignore them for a while, but eventually the current pulls you under, not to drown you, but to show you what's hidden below. And when you come back to the surface, you don't come back the same. You come back whole, because here's the secret. Integrating your shadow doesn't make you darker. It makes your light more powerful. A person who has faced their darkness can no longer be easily manipulated because they know what they're capable of. They can no longer be guilt-tripped because they understand their own motives. They can no longer be broken by rejection because they've already accepted the parts of themselves the world doesn't love. That's real strength, not perfection, but wholeness. The shadow isn't something to be destroyed. It's something to be integrated. When you bring light to it, when you can say, yes, I have anger, yes, I have envy, yes, I have darkness, you stop being its prisoner. It no longer controls you from behind the scenes. You take back your power, but if you keep denying it, it will control you in ways you don't even notice, in your relationships, your choices, your addictions, your sudden emotional outbursts. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be pure. It needs more people courageous enough to say, I'm human, both light and shadow, both saint and sinner, because that's where real compassion is born. When you know your own darkness, you stop judging others for theirs. You understand that everyone is fighting an unseen battle inside their soul. That's what Jung meant. The higher your branches reach toward heaven, the deeper your roots must go into the darkness. If you refuse to look down, you'll never truly rise. So don't be afraid of your shadow. Don't run from it. Don't hide it behind fake positivity or forced politeness. Sit with it. Listen to it. Learn from it. Because only when you have the courage to explore the parts of yourself that scare you, do you finally discover the strength that frees you. And when that happens, when you've met your own darkness and embraced it with understanding, you become something unshakable. You stop being just a good person. You become a whole person, and a whole person who knows both their light and their darkness. Here's far more powerful than anyone who pretends to be pure. The world often praises people who give endlessly. We celebrate those who sacrifice, who always say yes, who carry others even when their own strength is fading. We call them selfless, saints and good souls. But beneath that praise lies a dangerous illusion, the belief that being kind means never saying no. For years, good people have been taught that love means endurance, that compassion means silence, and that peace means submission. They've been told that boundaries are selfish, that putting yourself first is somehow wrong. And so millions of kind-hearted people quietly drain themselves, trying to prove their goodness through constant giving. But here's the truth no one tells them. You can't be truly kind without boundaries, because without boundaries, your kindness becomes a currency that others spend freely, often without appreciation, and without ever replenishing what they take. You become the healer who is never healed, the helper who is never helped, the light that keeps burning out until there's nothing left to give. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks. They don't block love. They control who enters and under what conditions. They are not signs of cruelty. They are acts of self-respect. A person without boundaries is like a house with open doors in the middle of the night. Anyone can walk in, rearrange the furniture, and leave you to clean the mess. You might think setting boundaries will make people love you less, but the truth is the right people will love you more, because your boundaries will teach them how to treat you. They'll realize your kindness is not weakness, it's choice. Your no doesn't come from coldness, it comes from wisdom. The most powerful transformation begins the moment you realize this. You are not responsible for how others feel when you finally choose yourself. You are not cruel for walking away from disrespect. You are not arrogant for wanting rest. You are not selfish for refusing to be drained. You are simply awakening to your worth. Every time you say no to something that violates your peace, you are saying yes to your own growth. Every time you stop explaining yourself, you take back the energy that was never yours to spend. Boundaries are not punishments. They are protection. They guard your time, your emotions, and your energy, the most valuable things you possess. Think about this. A river without banks is not a river. It's a flood. It loses direction, it destroys rather than nourishes. Your life works the same way. Your boundaries are your riverbanks. They give shape to your flow, direction to your purpose, and peace to your soul. But many people fear boundaries because they fear rejection. They worry that saying no will make people leave, and maybe some will, but the ones who leave because you stopped overgiving were never truly with you. The right people won't walk away when you speak your truth. They'll respect you more for it. They'll see your no as a sign of integrity, not defiance, because real relationships, whether friendships, family, or love, are not built on how much you can endure, but on how honestly you can be yourself. Boundaries also heal your inner child, the part of you that learned love had to be earned. That affection came with conditions, that saying no made you unworthy. Each time you stand firm, you teach that wounded child that love doesn't require suffering. You show them that kindness without self-respect is not love, it's fear. And here's the most powerful thing. When you begin to honor your boundaries, you inspire others to do the same. You show people that self-respect is not arrogance but alignment, that protecting your energy doesn't make you heartless, it makes you whole. Some people won't like your new strength. They'll call you changed, difficult, or cold, but remember, the only people who get upset when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none, and those are not the people meant to stay in your life. The truth is, your boundaries will offend those who have no respect for limits, but they will also attract those who value authenticity, honesty, and emotional balance. You will no longer draw people who take, you will draw people who reciprocate. So to every person who has ever felt guilty for saying no, hear this clearly. Protecting your peace is not a sin. It's a sacred act. You can be kind and still be firm. You can be loving and still walk away. You can be forgiving and still refuse to be mistreated again. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. Real love is not about losing yourself. It's about sharing yourself freely without resentment, because you've learned how to refill your own cup. And when your kindness flows from a place of strength instead of obligation, it becomes unstoppable. It heals rather than depletes. It inspires rather than weakens. So build your boundaries like sacred walls around your peace. Let your no be just as beautiful as your yes, because every time you choose peace over approval, every time you honor your truth over guilt, you step closer to your highest self. And that's the power of boundaries. They don't make you less kind. They make your kindness pure. At some point, every good person reaches a crossroads, a moment when they realize that their light alone is not enough, that no matter how kind, patient, or forgiving they are, the world will still misunderstand them, take from them, and sometimes break them. And in that moment of quiet disillusionment, they face the most important question of all: will I continue to hide my darkness, or will I learn to embrace it? You see, most people spend their lives trying to be one thing: good. They run from their anger, deny their jealousy, suppress their pain, and pretend their fears don't exist. They live only half a life, the half the world finds acceptable. But you cannot be whole if you only live in the light. You cannot know real peace until you've made peace with your chaos. The truth is, every human being carries two forces within them: the light that uplifts and the shadow that protects. The light is your compassion, your empathy, your kindness. The shadow is your power, your strength, your instinct to survive. Most people are taught to develop the light and destroy the shadow. But real wisdom comes when you understand that both are sacred and both are necessary. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's the part of you that says enough. It's the part that walks away when your boundaries are crossed. It's the fire that rises when you've been silenced for too long. Without it, your light has no defense. To embrace both is to become complete. To deny either is to remain broken. Think about the sun and the moon. One shines brightly, the other quietly, but both rule the sky. You wouldn't call the night evil just because it's dark. In fact, it's in the darkness that we rest, heal, and dream. The same is true within you. Your light gives life. Your shadow gives depth. Your light helps you connect with others. Your shadow helps you protect yourself. Together they make you whole. When you begin to integrate them, something profound happens. You stop being reactive. You stop chasing approval. You stop trying to prove your goodness because you finally understand your humanity. You realize that real goodness doesn't come from denying your flaws, but from mastering them. It's not about being harmless. It's about being capable of harm and consciously choosing restraint. It's not about being pure. It's about being aware of your impurity and still walking with integrity. That's the true meaning of strength. the ability to hold both heaven and hell within you, and remain balanced, and it's in this balance that your greatest transformation begins. You stop seeking validation from others, because you no longer need to be seen as perfect. You stop fearing judgment, because you've already faced the harshest judge yourself and chosen forgiveness. You stop trying to fit into people's expectations, because your soul has outgrown the need to please. When you embrace both your light and your shadow, you start living in truth, and truth is freedom. Freedom to say no without guilt. Freedom to love without losing yourself. Freedom to stand in your power without apology. That's when your kindness becomes wisdom and your boundaries become grace. That's when your presence starts to feel calm, unshakable, magnetic. Because people sense that you are not pretending anymore. You are not just good, you are real, and realness is rare. It's powerful. It's contagious. When a person integrates their shadow, they no longer need to dim their light to make others comfortable. They no longer fear being misunderstood because they understand themselves. They no longer run from pain because they've learned to alchemize it into purpose. That's the evolution of the good person, from fragile to fearless, from self-sacrificing to self-aware, from wounded to wise. The dark side of good people was never evil. It was never about corruption or cruelty. It was about unclaimed strength, power that was buried beneath years of trying to please, to heal, to be accepted. When you bring that power back to the surface, when you own it, channel it and balance it with compassion, you become unstoppable. Because now your kindness is no longer weakness. It's a choice, a conscious, powerful, deliberate act. You can walk away without hate. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love without losing yourself. That is not softness, that is mastery. And mastery is not about perfection. It's about integration. It's about learning to live with your contradictions without shame. To be both fragile and fierce, both humble and strong, both light and shadow, fully unapologetically human. So the next time someone calls you too nice, smile. They have no idea how much strength it takes to stay kind in a world that keeps testing your limits. Smile, because your kindness is not weakness. It's proof that you've met your darkness and still chosen the light. Not because you had to, but because you wanted to. That is the beauty of the human soul. It is not pure light nor endless dark, but a sacred dance between both. And those who learn to dance with their darkness are the ones who truly shine.